What's up guys, this is Jeff from Sorta Healthy, and today we'll be talking all about programming that you should be using with your clients if you're a personal trainer. Programming is a big topic in personal training, and because of that we're going to have to break programming up into multiple different videos. Today we'll be focusing primarily on phasing. What is phasing? Well, phasing is actually kind of a hard thing to define. In fact, when searching online, phasing in regards to exercise phasing, I wasn't really able to find a good description for it. Periodization, which in a lot of cases can be used interchangeably with phasing, I was able to find some good definitions for that. And I would argue that periodization is essential to an effective resistance training program. Periodization is the systematic planning of athletic physical training. The aim is to reach the best possible performance in the most important competition of the year. It involves progressive cycling of various aspects of a training program during a specific period. Gotta love Wikipedia. So why do I have to use periodization or phasing in my clients' workouts? Well, first off, the biggest reason is to avoid plateaus. Any relatively experienced lifter will tell you that unless you're constantly changing workout variables in your workouts, you're gonna plateau pretty quickly. So of course my objective with my clients, or even with myself, is to progressively make these workouts more challenging over time. But if the only thing I ever did with my clients was add just a tiny bit of weight here and there, or maybe add a rep here or there, there's a very high probability that once they get past that beginner lifter stage, we're gonna start to hit plateaus pretty quickly. Not to mention it can be a boring grind if you're kind of just doing the same workouts all the time. So yeah, to avoid the plateaus and to keep the workouts fresh and exciting, we use phasing or periodization. So if you're like me or most personal trainers, you probably don't have too many clients that you're trying to prepare for specific events. Sure, I'll get clients once in a while who do have some event on the horizon or something that they do specifically want to prepare for, but most of my clients are between the ages of 30 and 70. They're average Joes, and most of them want to lose weight. I do get a pretty fair number of people who also want to get stronger or gain some muscle mass too. Because of this, the periodization I use for most of my clients looks pretty different than the stuff you would see being used with like a professional athlete, for example. Again, typically I'm not preparing these people for an event or a competition. I'm just preparing them to be healthier for the rest of their lives. Before we move any further, I should also say that I don't do any programming with a client until I've already done two things with that client. The first is a consultation, and the second is an assessment. In the consultation, which I'm gonna pop a link somewhere up there, we do a ton of different goal setting. And if I'm not sure on what your goals are, honestly, I'm not going to be able to write you a very good program. So yeah, we have to establish those goals and be crystal clear on those goals before we do any programming at all. The second thing I do with that client is an assessment. I need to know where this client is capable and where they're not so capable. I mean, if they can't get into a proper squat, it wouldn't be too smart of me to throw a barbell on their back, load it up with a bunch of weight plates, and then have them do 1-rep maxes early on into their workout program. No, we have to correct their form and fix any imbalances before we can even think about using that barbell, let alone a barbell with any plates on it. Things like this are why an assessment is so important and why you should definitely do one before you do any sort of programming whatsoever with your client. I will pop a link up above for that video as well. I should also mention that the forms for my consultation, assessment, and all the forms that I use for my programming are all free to use down in the video description. And the best part is, they're free. I take that back actually, they're 99.9% free. All I request from you is a like on the video and subscribing to the channel because it does very much help the channel to grow. Anyways, let's take a deeper dive now into phasing. Okay guys, now we're checking out my phasing system chart. So the 5 fitness phases that I use in my personal training studio and in my online business are foundation, muscular endurance, hypertrophy, strength, and metabolic conditioning. Another thing to note, whenever I sign on a new client, I put them in one of 4 phasing tracts. If they're a client whose main goal is weight loss, they go in total body lean. If they're a client whose main goal is to gain strength, they go in strength first. If they're a client who primarily wants to build muscle mass, they go in physique. And if they're a client who primarily just wants to work on mobility or flexibility, they go in mobility. Each phase in my system lasts 6 to 8 weeks, preferably as close to 6 weeks as possible. Many of my clients travel and have irregular work schedules, so if we do have to extend it a little bit past that 6 weeks, that's okay, we make do. So let's pretend we have a client that wants to lose weight or is in this total body lean category. They're going to start out in the foundation phase. This means they're going to do 2 to 4 sets of each exercise and 8 to 20 reps for each exercise. There's also going to be a big emphasis on form work. So now we're taking a quick detour to my workout chart. If someone is in that foundation phase, I want them primarily working on these exercises that are in bold: squats, deadlifts, lunges, step ups, and bridges or hip thrusts. Pretty much all the lower body moves make the cut in this case. For pushing exercises, bench press, push-ups, shoulder press. For pulling exercises, we got rows, lat pull-downs, and the reverse fly, which is a pretty underrated move. And then for core, I want them working on planks, some sort of crunch, plenty of different variations that they could do there, and then some sort of core rotational exercise. These are all exercises that I want them doing early on, and I want them to get really good at these different exercises. So when I have a client who's first starting out, assuming that they haven't done a ton of resistance training already, they're gonna go in that foundation phase, and they're gonna be doing, again, primarily these bolded exercises. And we'll be doing lots of form work for those bolded exercises. Back to the phasing chart. If I sign on a client who's a very experienced lifter, sometimes I'll actually skip this foundational phase, but those clients are few and far between. So again, most people are going to start off here. Again, going back to our client who wants to lose weight and is in this total body lean track. After we do our 6 to 8 weeks of this foundational phase here, where we're following all these guidelines, we move to muscular endurance, where we're going to do 2 to 3 sets of every exercise, and we're going to do 13 to 20 reps. Now, in most cases, the meat of the workout is still going to be these kind of bolded exercises here. These are the compound movements, and they should be your focus regardless. But I would hope my client has pretty solid form for most of these exercises by now. And if I want to do a little bit more accessory work at this point, sure, I can do that. Next up for my weight loss client, we move to the hypertrophy phase. And hypertrophy means muscle mass. We want to gain some muscle mass, which is good because the more muscle mass you have, the more active your metabolism is. So definitely there's no disadvantage to having muscle mass, especially if you want to be lean. So for 6 to 8 weeks, my clients will be doing 3 to 5 sets of these different exercises, and they'll be doing 8 to 12 reps for each exercise. The fourth phase is metabolic conditioning, as you can see a 4 right here. So in this category, they're going to be doing 2 to 3 sets, 15 or more reps, or sometimes they'll be doing exercises for time. Back to my workout chart now. In this phase, we still do primarily compound movements, but we also do more metabolic moves. Notice down here, you'll see that I have a rower, AD stands for airdyne, or battle ropes. In this phase, I'll be much more likely to include some metabolic moves within the workouts themselves. It's not written down here, but I also generally give shorter rest periods when I'm in this metabolic conditioning phase too. You'll notice if we're looking at our total body lean client, it says include occasionally when it comes to strength training. I'm of the opinion that everybody should do strength training, even someone whose main objective is just to get lean. So definitely there are going to be some days where we're mixing in those heavier reps and sets. Word of advice though, if a client is coming to you for weight loss, they might not want to do a whole lot of very low rep strength training. So I just make sure to do it on a semi-regular basis with anybody who's willing, and I will throw it in their program when it's appropriate. So now if we take a quick look at strength first, or someone who's trying to primarily gain strength, you'll see that the track that they follow is pretty different. Unless they're super experienced, they're going to start out in this foundational phase as well. But right after that, they're going to go straight into heavy strength training. Of course, if I'm working with a client like this, I'm probably going to try and gradually increase their weight even while they're in this foundational phase. Again, a client's personal goals come before anything else. But anyways, after they've done their 3 to 5 sets, 1 to 7 reps for 6 to 8 weeks in their strength phase, they're going to move to hypertrophy. And then for 6 to 8 weeks, they'll be doing 3 to 5 sets, 8 to 12 reps. And you'll notice here how it says include occasionally for muscular endurance in metabolic conditioning. Of course, I still want this client doing some muscular endurance exercises and some metabolic conditioning, but it's just pretty much whenever the trainer feels like it's appropriate to include these things. Obviously, these don't really have a whole lot to do with the client's main objective, which is to gain strength. So yeah, guys, that's part 1 of how I program for a client. And I should say this programming doesn't really change too much whether I'm working with someone in person or online. My phasing is the exact same either way. In my next video on programming as a personal trainer, we're going to go into how I plan every exercise, every set, and every rep. So yeah, we're really going to get into the nitty-gritty in that next episode. Hopefully you guys are finding these videos useful. I think unfortunately a lot of the certification courses overcomplicate this stuff, and needlessly so. So hopefully you guys are getting more usable pieces of information in these videos. The systems that we're outlining here have certainly worked very well for me over the years. As always, if you haven't liked the video or subscribed, please do because it very much helps the channel. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll be back very soon with more useful content.